In this video tutorial, I am going to discuss about reducing properties of carbohydrate. We know that carbohydrate may have this CHO group, this is aldehyde group, or keto group, that is C double bond O group, that is keto group. In any carbohydrate, either aldehyde group is present or keto group is present, and both group, whenever they are in its free form, they act as a reducing agent. And this aldehyde or keto group containing sugar, if they are provided alkaline medium, as we had discussed in my previous video, that they are converted to C double bonded O with its OH group. It is converted to this part, okay, and this part we all know that it is the enadiols. And these enadiols are also reducing agent. But the difference between the reducing property of this aldehyde and keto group and the reducing property of this enadiol is that this enadiols reducing property or enadiols as a reducing agent, they are very powerful. They are very powerful reducing agent than this reducing agent of this aldehyde or keto group, right? So now let's see the different examples. We know that monosaccharides are there, very different monosaccharides. We know that we have glucose, then fructose, we have galactose, then mannose, we have ribose is a pentose sugar, rest all are the hexose sugar. Then we have different disaccharides. In disaccharides we have lactose, then we have maltose and sucrose. These are the most popular three disaccharides. In case of glucose, we know that it is aldehyde group and it is a free form. So aldehyde group in its free form, that means it's a reducing agent. So we can call this glucose as a reducing sugar. Fructose, on its second carbon, it is keto group, and keto group is also free. It has not made any bond with any other compound. So again, fructose is also a reducing sugar. This galactose, mannose, ribose, all these three are aldose sugar or aldehyde group. It is free aldehyde group. So all these three are also a reducing sugar. The interesting fact about this monosaccharide is that one aldehyde or keto group is present per one molecule of monosaccharide, right? Okay. What about the disaccharide? Disaccharide, we know that lactose is made up of glucose plus galactose, maltose is glucose plus glucose, and sucrose is glucose plus fructose. Now what happened here? Glucose plus galactose, so it has two aldehyde group, right? In case of maltose, glucose plus glucose, again two aldehyde group. In case of sucrose, one aldehyde and one keto group is there. But here there is a formation of covalent bond. So let's try to understand what type of covalent bond is there. So glucose, we know that it has 6 carbon skeleton. 6 carbons are there. Galactose has also a 6 carbon. So these are 6 carbon. Now here I am not drawing a complete structure. I am just trying to show only its active group. So here on glucose there is CHO group, and on galactose there is a CHO group. So the bond formation is between the first carbon of glucose and the fourth carbon of this galactose. So there is a bond formation like this. So only this CHO group is in the free form. So here we can say one aldehyde group per 2 monosaccharide, right? Per 2 monosaccharide. What about this maltose? It has 2 glucose molecule. So here I am not drawing a separate diagram. This is glucose molecule. Now consider this as a glucose molecule. Okay, its location of the aldehyde group is same. So here also the bond formation is between the first carbon of first glucose and the fourth carbon of second glucose. So here also, in case of maltose also, there is a one aldehyde group per 2 monosaccharide unit. What about the sucrose? Sucrose, we have glucose, so 6 carbons are there, right? So these are the 6 carbons, and first glucose, it is aldehyde group on the first carbon. Fructose, it has also 6 carbon, so I am drawing this 6 carbon chain, and on the second carbon it is keto group. Now the bond formation in sucrose is the first carbon of glucose is bound with the second carbon of fructose, and there is a formation of bond. So now you can see both active group are present, one is aldehyde and keto group, but the problem is both are bound with each other. They are not in its free form, so they cannot show reducing property. So here we don't have any free active group. So our sucrose, it is a non-reducing sugar. And the reason is it does not contain any free active group, either aldehyde or keto group. Whereas in case of lactose and maltose, there is one aldehyde group is present per 2 monosaccharide unit. Okay, so now if you compare monosaccharide and disaccharide, it is monosaccharides, all monosaccharide has one aldehyde or keto group per one monosaccharide, right? Whereas in case of disaccharide, this sucrose is out of equation, right? It is non-reducing sugar, so no question of comparing it. Lactose or maltose, there is one aldehyde group is present per 2 monosaccharide unit. So if you compare both this monosaccharide and disaccharide, monosaccharides are the more reducing agent than the disaccharide. Both are reducing sugar, but monosaccharide are somewhat powerful than the disaccharide. And if you add NADOLs in the equation, NADOLs are the most powerful reducing agent. Okay. Now, what is the importance of knowing about these reducing properties of different sugar? The reason is we have one taste, which is Benedict taste. Benedict's taste is there. In the old time, when modern instruments were not available, at that time Benedict's taste was able to identify whether glucose is present in the urine or not, and this answer is useful for the diagnosis of diabetes mellitus. So how does Benedict taste is able to identify whether glucose is present in urine or not? So we have to look for the principle of Benedict taste. Suppose you have reducing sugar. The Benedict taste, what it had done is it provide alkaline medium. So if particular sugar is reducing sugar, then what will happen? This reducing sugar will be converted to NADOL. Now this NADOL, we know that it is a powerful reducing agent. So what it will do? The cupric ion, this cupric ion is reduced to the Cu+, that is cuprous ion. So NADOLs, they are powerful reducing agent. So anything which comes into the contact with NADOL will get reduced. So here in Benedict taste, it's a cupric ion, that is Cu+2. It is converted to, or you can say it is reduced to Cu+ ion, that is cuprous ion. This cuprous ion then react with the aqueous hydroxyl ion and forms the cuprous hydroxide, and then it is converted to cuprous oxide. This cuprous oxide is a red color and it is insoluble. So what will happen? We can see the red color precipitates. Are seen. So if red color precipitates are seen in the Benedict test, what does it mean? It means that reducing sugar is present in the particular sample. So if you do a Benedict test with some person's urine, and if you find Benedict test is a positive, the correct answer is that particular urine sample contain a reducing sugar. But why? Can we call it as that particular patient's urine contain glucose rather than telling reducing sugar? No. Ideally, theoretically, you cannot say that glucose is present by doing Benedict test. You can only say reducing sugar is present in urine, not the glucose. Why? Because there are glucose, galactose, maltose, lactose, fructose, mannose, ribose. All these reducing sugar can give a positive Benedict test. But in case of human, most of the time, if this Benedict test is positive, then most of the time it is most commonly glucose which is giving rise a positive Benedict test. So my advice is, if you diagnose a most common disease, you will be mostly correct. Okay. So Benedict test will immediately hint you that okay, particular patient sample contain reducing sugar and mostly it is glucose. So this patient might have diabetes mellitus, and so later on, based on clinical judgment, you can diagnose it. Okay. There is another test which is known as Barford test. Barford's test. This test is also useful. Now, the Barford test is almost similar to Benedict test. The difference is in the pH. So, this Barford test is done under acidic medium. It is done under acidic medium, whereas Benedict test is done under alkaline medium, right? So, what will be the difference in the inference while doing Barford test? We know that if acidic medium is there, then the reducing sugar, its conversion to NADOLs is somewhat inhibited. Under acidic condition, reducing sugar cannot easily convert it to NADOLs. Okay. So what will happen? Whatever the sugar which has very strong reducing property, they will only able to convert it to NADOLs. We know that out of this monosaccharide and disaccharide, monosaccharides are the powerful reducing sugar, right? When you compare monosaccharide and disaccharide. So only monosaccharide will be able to convert to NADOLs in the presence of acidic medium. So the rest of the things, that is cupric to the cuprous, and then cuprous hydroxide, and then cuprous oxide, rest everything is same. So just you convert alkaline medium to acidic medium, then instead of all the reducing sugar, only monosaccharide. So monosaccharide reducing sugar will be able to convert it to NADOLs. So whenever Barford test is positive, that means reducing monosaccharide are present. Now all the monosaccharides are reducing, so you can omit this word reducing. So the inference or the conclusion of positive Barford test is monosaccharides are present. So these two tests are very useful for the checking of the reducing properties of carbohydrate. So that's all about reducing properties of carbohydrate. If you have any query or confusion, please write it down in the comment section below. Thank you.